number 2, which comes from Deputy Pat Buckley, and he wishes to discuss the continued and long-running boil water notices in East Cork and the need to resolve the issue permanently.
Thank you. Good morning, Ceann Comhairle, and Minister, thanks for taking this topical tonight. I think the Ceann Comhairle introduced it well. I mean, Indiana Jones, I say, hasn't been going on as long as this has. Minister, this has been going on for about 7 years now, this boil water notice in the Whitegate area. It affects over 10,000 people in Middleton, Ballinacurra, Clyne, Ballintoutis, Rathcourcey, Saline, Upper Hadda, Whitegate, Ballycotton, Touchtown, Chibulgan and all the surrounding areas. Now, the most recent time I was in here was the 31st of January. But as I said, this is going back to St. Valentine's Day 2016. It has still been ongoing, and the problem is, even with my own county councillor, the Sinn Féin County Councillor Daniel Toomey, trying to get answers to questions from Irish Water, we're getting the bog standard requests. Excuse me, I suspect in your response there'll be the mention of turbidity, not tenable, a new plant and probably a date for completion. But it's in the meantime, why people are very frustrated here. Between the towns and the villages, it's also a very rural area with elderly people. There's very poor public transport there, so it makes it very, very difficult for these people to get to the shops to actually have to buy bottled water constantly. I'm not going to mention anybody with medical problems, but we also have people that are running businesses there. We have a couple of hotels in Garryvaughan, Ballycotton. We have shops, we have businesses, restaurants, and they're all frustrated. Now, I don't like coming in here over and over again raising this. And the only thing that has changed since I came in here and started raising this back in 2016 is it went from Irish Water to Uisce. That's the only difference. Now, I did mention back in January 2013, because it really frustrates the residents and the people in that area, is for the very fact that we have the Whitegate oil refinery, we have the gas station, we do a power plant. There is an alternative water source, and I did mention it back in January, but it just seemed to fall on deaf ears. Now, we had an incident, I think it was maybe 2 weeks ago here in Dublin, where there was a burst waterman. It was on all national news. They had tankers out in a couple of hours, and yet these people in East Cork are going on 7 years, and they haven't got as much as a bottle of water from Irish Water in compensation. They're spending thousands of euros in the last 7 years, and I do genuinely think it's just not good enough for the people of East Cork. I think we're being classed as second-class citizens. We're being ignored. The standard of treatment plants that are going in there, because I know it, because I worked in storage and water for years, is actually not even up to the standard of the one they're going to put into White Bay, which is it's called White Bay for a reason, that beach. But it's not actually going to be proper, I'd say, a percolation system to break down the storage and the smut there, but that's for another day. But why I want to raise it here is I need somebody to get clarity, or somebody that can set up a meeting with Uisce and say, right, lads, these are the concerns of the residents that are living in the area. This is the heartache they're going through. They can understand the progress, it takes time, but to be just absolutely ignored. And I was very frustrated through my councillor, because she would be dealing with the people locally, was the lack of information. Some of these people find out because the boil water notice is on, it's off, or we have it up on the website. It's a rural area. People don't have internet in some places. Some people don't use computers, and they find out on a newspaper ad probably 4 days later after the boil notice has been issued. These people have been consuming the water, they're going to get sick or whatever. And I'm here tonight just to say, Minister, and plead with yourself or the department to try and get some meeting with myself and others, I don't care, to sit down with Uisce and try and get this resolved and get clarity for the residents in that area. Thank you.
Minister, please.
Thank you, Ceann Comhairle, and I'd like to thank Deputy Buckley for raising this issue of providing safe drink water in East Cork, and ask him to forgive that it's me taking it rather than a direct line minister, where you might have a more direct response. However, I appreciate the Deputy's concerns for those communities, as the Deputy is more than well aware this is a very serious issue, otherwise he wouldn't be bringing it repeatedly to the House. I know that the operation of Whitegate Regional Public Water Supply is a matter for Uisce Éireann, who since the 1st of January 2014 have had statutory responsibility for it. In turn, the Environmental Protection Agency, as the environmental regulator, is responsible for setting quality standards and enforcing compliance with EU directives and national regulations for the provision of drinking water. So the department has made inquiries both with Uisce Éireann and I am informed that the boil water notice currently in place for Whitegate Public Water Supply was issued, as the Deputy is more than aware, with Cork, following consultation between Uisce Éireann, Cork County Council and the HSE. Uisce Éireann are pursuing a permanent solution to address the very frequent boil water notices that the people of East Cork have had to put up with over the last number of years, and that involves a major upgrade of the water treatment plant. A contractor has been appointed to undertake the design and construction, land has been acquired and a planning application was submitted in January 2023. Planning permission was approved by Cork County Council in May 2023. However, following the statutory process, appeals have now been lodged with An Bord Pleanála, which will delay it, of course, Deputy. The proposed works will include a new coagulation, flocculation and clarification system, a new filtration system and a new disinfection system. Significant upgrades will also be made to other aspects of the Kilva water treatment plant site. The EPA will ensure that the new plant meets all applicable standards before this supply is removed from the remedial action list. The department's priority is to ensure people's health is protected and that adequate water is available for all consumers and for all citizens and residents. We want to see the notice lifted without undue delay, but only when obviously the HSE and EPA have confirmed the water supply is safe. As part of Budget 2023, Minister O'Brien secured funding of over €1.65 billion to support water services. That includes €1.56 billion in respect of domestic water services provision by Uisce Éireann. The overall investment will deliver significant improvements in public water and wastewater services, as the Deputy is aware, improved water supplies right across Ireland, including rural Ireland, and it will support a range of programmes delivering improved water quality in our rivers, lakes and marine areas, making a significant contribution to addressing Ireland's needs. But very little of that is any comfort if you happen to be living with a boil water notice tonight, and as soon as that project can be completed, I hope that it is.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy Buckley.
Thank you for your response. And I'd say if I went back to Cork Bio, which was the one on the 23rd of January, the opening statement is pretty the same. They just put in the fancy new words like coagulation, flocculation, clarification and filtration systems. The last time I had a response from this, it was the filtration system, it was the UV system. And I remember making a statement, I said, the last excuse was they were ordering the part. And I remember saying inside here, I said, ordering a part. 6 years down the road, you're ordering a part. I said, if you went to wish.com or AliExpress, you'd probably get the part faster. Right, that's the one point I want to make. But the biggest frustration I have here when I'm representing the people of East Cork, and especially down in the Whitegate area and all the other areas I mentioned here, is the frustration of the lack of communication, the lack of information, the lack of empathy, I suppose, for people that are suffering, and the fact, and I go back to and I don't like pitting people, but you have a major incident in Dublin, and it can be sorted within a day, and water supply can be sorted, emergency water supply can be sorted within 2 hours, and yet you're 7 years here down the road and somebody hasn't even got a bottle of water from Irish Water. Not a mind an apology. And I don't think that the people here, we've seen it with RT in this kind of, I've met people saying that's it, they're not paying their RT licence anymore. I suspect a lot of these businesses are very, very frustrated now, and with water rates and stuff, because they're paying for something that they're not getting. So I would have just appealed to you, and I do. And I know you're coming from the response of the Minister's response here, and I do understand this, but like it says again about the website and the 24-hour customer line, people actually don't get that information. Like when we go knock on the doors, you knock on doors, you give a person an information leaflet. I mean, that's the old style way, and I think that's where Uisce Éireann are going to have to go back here, because it can be very, very rural. I thank you for taking this topical tonight, and I thank Cian Corla for picking this topical, but as I said, it gives little solace to the people of East Cork on this, and I hope not, but unfortunately we'll be revisiting it again.
Keep plugging away at it. Minister, to conclude.
Thank you, Deputy. And I actually hadn't intended on reading out the email address or the phone number because I suspected that they were already well aware of that and that it was of little assistance in circumstances where you had a 7-year boil notice in effect, and that it probably wasn't the most efficient way of communicating. If it is an on and off thing, I would have suggested that an app that everybody is plugged into is a much more effective way of, on somebody's mobile phone to be able to provide information in a proactive way to actually assist people who need to know whether or not there's a boil notice on. I would say that not everything in Dublin is perfect. I come from Dunleary, where we have a very, very Victorian water system, and it has a lot of complications, but we don't suffer from the same ongoing issue as the people of East Cork are suffering in relation to this. I'm not going to set out Uisce Éireann's primary function to provide clean, safe and drinking water customers just to a deputy who's representing constituents who have not experienced that for the past period. And I would say that it's a matter of urgency that this matter is resolved to make sure that people have clean water.